Hollywood sells us a dream, but behind the spotlight, some of its biggest stars lived lives far darker than anyone imagined. The smiles were real. The applause was loud. But the truth? It was often hidden, cruel, and deeply unsettling. Now, decades later, one of Hollywood's most trusted insiders has finally spoken, and what he revealed forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew about the golden age of cinema. That man is Ron Howard. Best known as one of Hollywood's most reliable storytellers, Howard has seen the industry from the inside since childhood. And what he's shared about the people behind the legends isn't glamorous, it's disturbing. Ron Howard was born on March 1, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma, the eldest son of actor and director Rance Howard and actress Jean Spiegel. Entertainment wasn't a career choice for Ron, it was the environment he grew up in. By the time most kids were in classrooms, Howard was being tutored on studio sets while working in television. His acting career began early, with appearances in shows like The Twilight Zone, Dennis the Menace, and The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. But in 1960, his life changed forever when he became Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show. For 8 seasons, he embodied wholesome American innocence, becoming one of television's most beloved child actors. As he grew older, Howard transitioned smoothly into film, appearing in The Music Man, American Graffiti, and eventually Happy Days, where he played Richie Cunningham. But even at the height of his acting success, Howard felt pulled toward something else, directing. That decision changed everything. His directorial debut came in 1977 with Grand Theft Auto, and momentum followed quickly. Films like Night Shift, Splash, and Cocoon established him as a major creative force. Later came critically acclaimed projects like Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, Frost/Nixon, and Rush. Howard became known not for shock value, but for emotional precision and strong storytelling. Off-screen, his life was equally rare by Hollywood standards. Ron Howard married Cheryl Alley in 1975, and their marriage has lasted nearly 5 decades, almost unheard of in an industry defined by short-lived relationships. Together, they raised 4 children, including Bryce Dallas Howard, who would go on to become a successful actress and director herself. Howard has often credited his family as his anchor, a stabilizing force in a chaotic industry. And yet, even his personal life held unexpected revelations. In 2025, he discovered that Don Knotts, his co-star on The Andy Griffith Show, was actually his cousin. Neither man knew this during Knotts' lifetime, making their iconic on-screen bond even more uncanny. Despite his success, Howard has not escaped criticism. Some reviewers argue his films are too safe, polished but predictable. His versatility across genres, they say, comes at the cost of a recognizable personal style. Rather than pushing boundaries, Howard is often described as Hollywood's most dependable director, a filmmaker studios trust, but critics rarely call daring. And that brings us to the most controversial part of his story. Behind the scenes, Howard witnessed behavior that shattered the myth of Hollywood heroism. And according to him, some of the industry's most beloved figures weren't nearly as admirable as their public images suggested. Take Happy Days. When the show took off, Henry Winkler's Fonzie became a breakout sensation. Producers shifted attention toward him. More screen time, more promotion, more power. Howard, originally the show's lead, felt sidelined and disrespected. At one point, there was even discussion of renaming the series Fonzie's Happy Days. Howard drew a line. He told producers he would walk away rather than stay on a show that had abandoned its original vision. This wasn't about jealousy, it was about fairness. Ultimately, the title remained unchanged, and Howard stayed on briefly before leaving to pursue directing. The tension, he later clarified, wasn't personal. It was a collision of fame, ambition, and values. And that was only the beginning. When Howard stepped onto the set of The Shootist in 1976, John Wayne's final film, he encountered another side of Hollywood legend. Wayne, known publicly as a symbol of strength and honor, had a reputation for being harsh toward younger actors. What Howard witnessed would later confirm that reputation, and raise serious questions about the cost of idolizing icons without knowing who they truly were. Hollywood legends don't always clash with enemies. Sometimes, the real tension comes from respect, pressure, and the cost of getting greatness on screen. And from there, the stories only grow darker. Ron Howard entered one project already bracing for trouble. The very first meeting confirmed his fears. When Howard walked into John Wayne's hotel room alongside the director, Someone handed Wayne a TV guide featuring Howard and his co-star on the cover. Wayne glanced at it, looked back at Howard, and dryly said, "Ah, here's the big shot." Howard later admitted his heart sank. For a young actor standing opposite a screen legend known for unforgiving standards, that moment felt like a warning shot. One look, one line, enough to spark real dread. But the story didn't end there. As filming continued, the tension eased in an unexpected way. Howard's background in television, something many film veterans dismissed, actually resonated with Wayne. He viewed TV as a proving ground, much like early cinema shorts, and respected Howard for knowing how to work efficiently. What truly sealed their bond was Howard's initiative. He asked Wayne if they could rehearse their lines together, something few actors ever dared to suggest. That effort earned Wayne's respect. What began as an icy introduction evolved into mutual professionalism and trust. Instead of a feud, it became a lesson. Humility and preparation can disarm even the most intimidating legends. Tom Hanks and Henry Winkler. When Henry Winkler was hired to direct Turner and Hooch in 1989, expectations were high. He spent weeks preparing, bonding with the dog co-star, and mapping out the shoot. 13 days into production, he was fired. The dismissal was so abrupt that Winkler later joked he got along better with the dog than with the star. In a 2024 interview, Winkler suggested the tension may have begun during a location scout in Carmel, California, when a fan excitedly shouted, "Henry Fonz!" Barely acknowledging Hanks. Winkler hinted that moment may have unsettled the actor. Over the years, rumors of a bitter feud grew. Yet neither man publicly blamed the other. Winkler has repeatedly denied lasting animosity, calling the feud narrative exaggerated. Ron Howard, who worked closely with both men, offered crucial perspective. He described the fallout not as hatred, but as a clash of working styles. Both Hanks and Winkler reached out to Howard afterward. Time passed. Invitations were exchanged. The tension faded. What looked like a Hollywood feud was, in reality, a professional mismatch that never hardened into bitterness. Wilford Brimley on Cocoon. When Ron Howard directed Cocoon, he was still young. Wilford Brimley was a seasoned character actor, and their approaches often collided. Howard later admitted the relationship was sometimes unpleasant. Brimley preferred improvisation over strict adherence to the script, which challenged a young director trying to keep control. But Howard was honest about the trade-off. Brimley's instincts elevated the film. His improvisation brought warmth, honesty, and depth that the script alone couldn't provide. One fishing scene became iconic precisely because Howard let Brimley abandon the page. While there was tension, there's no credible evidence of hatred or a lasting feud. Howard consistently praised Brimley's talent and credited him with strengthening the film's emotional core. Cillian Murphy and In the Heart of the Sea. Cillian Murphy knew the shoot would be brutal. Even so, it exceeded expectations. The cast endured starvation-level diets, freezing water, constant dampness, and intense emotional strain. Murphy later admitted the experience pushed him to the edge, saying he felt mentally unbalanced during filming. Some reports claim Murphy hated working under those conditions. But the full picture is more complex. Murphy also said he accepted the suffering because he trusted Ron Howard and believed in the story. During press events, he openly expressed loyalty, saying the cast endured it because they respected Howard. Howard himself later apologized to the actors after long shooting days, fully aware of the toll. What emerged wasn't a feud, but a shared endurance test driven by realism and respect. Russell Crowe. Working with Russell Crowe, Howard once joked, was like filming on a tropical island. The weather could change instantly. Crowe's temper was real, but so was the trust between them. Howard believed Crowe's volatility often fueled his best performances. They argued, clashed, and talked it through. In fact, Crowe personally pushed Howard to direct Cinderella Man, a sign of deep respect. After A Beautiful Mind, Crowe publicly praised Howard's integrity. Their relationship was never simple, but it was productive. Creative friction didn't destroy the collaboration. It strengthened it. The bigger picture. Ron Howard's career reveals a truth fans rarely see. Behind every polished film is a director managing egos, exhaustion, fear, and human limits. Howard's strength wasn't avoiding conflict, it was navigating it. Knowing when to push, when to listen, and when to absorb the pressure himself. These weren't stories of hatred. They were stories of tension, ambition, and the cost of excellence. Howard didn't dominate sets through force. He led through emotional intelligence. And that's why, decades later, he remains one of Hollywood's most trusted filmmakers. Because success in Hollywood, or anywhere, doesn't come from avoiding friction. It comes from turning it into fuel. And that's the untold truth behind Ron Howard's career.